Hello, hello. I am Megan Powers with Powers of Marketing. If you listen to the Inside Events podcast, you might recognize my voice. I host Swapcard's podcast, which is dedicated entirely to the meetings and events industry. And I've spent more than 20 years in this space myself. And I've owned a boutique strategic marketing communications agency since 2013. So this session today is going to be a bonus episode of the Inside Events podcast. And I am super happy to talk marketing and introduce to you our two amazing guests today, Kimberly Hardcastle and Alessie. How are you two?
Doing well. Excited to be here.
Yeah, very excited. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to give the brief versions of their bios, and then we'll dig right in. All right, so Kimberly Hardcastle is Chief Marketing Strategist of MDG, the leading marketing and public relations agency specializing in B2B events in the United States. Hardcastle and her team provide solutions that increase attendance and exhibitor participation for several of the largest and most successful events, in person and online, in the country. Alessie is co-founder and director of World Football Summit, an international event that in 4 years has consolidated itself as a reference for the global football industry. Jan is also the founder of Nexus Fostering Partnership, the company responsible for the development of the World Football Summit. Okay, I'm pumped for this topic because, as you know, without marketing, you have no participants, whether the event's online, offline, or a combination of the two, whatever you want to call it, blended, hybrid, all of the new terminology, right, that we're all using. And I'm going to try, even though it's in the subject of the session, I'm going to try to not use the P word. We're talking shift today. So this seismic shift that we're all experiencing, it's a great time to have this discussion. So, all right, we're seeing huge registration numbers for online events because of the current situation. And this shift to online is tremendous for those who have accessibility issues, which some of the other sessions have touched on. And I think that's part of the reason that attendance is up or registrations are up. Whether they attend, I guess, is another thing. So we have an opportunity here to cast a wider net. So I want to talk about how your marketing can reach more people now that many of your upcoming events might be virtual. Kimberly, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. And, I think it's hard to give a one-size-fits-all answer here because everybody's events are different. But that's why I actually recommend to all of our clients working through a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, with particular emphasis on the opportunities, those new opportunities that may have opened up because of this global pandemic that we're under. For instance, if we're talking about opening up our events to more audiences, as we start marketing, we might want to focus less on geographic boundaries that we had put in place when we were just talking about a physical event. Maybe we promote heavily to regions that are staying under travel restrictions longer than others. Maybe we have an event that has a big competitor that canceled and didn't go online, and there's an opportunity there to serve those audiences. Maybe there's a prospective partner out there that we never considered before. I think there's just a lot of ways. There's probably segments of your industry that you serve that have been hit harder than others that really need your event right now, or a particular job title, that kind of thing. So I think the key is really starting with strategy when you think about how you want to broaden your audience to see, who needs you the most and who's going to be the most likely to participate in the digital version of your event.
Yeah, great points. Jan, what do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think also another thing is we're living at the moment such uncertain times, and we are not able to organize our physical events like we used to. But the need for knowledge, for interaction, and to discuss and engage with your audience, with potential business partners, with existing business partners, is probably now is greater than ever. So online events, obviously, they completely destroy the barriers that we used to have before, which were basically of having to travel to an event and all the logistics that was involved with traveling to an event. So making them online basically breaks those barriers. But the need for event organizers, for us to organize events like we used to, is now probably bigger than ever, because that need for exchange of opinions, that need for knowledge sharing is in my opinion bigger than ever, because there's so much uncertainty in the market, and we don't know exactly, you know, how long this is going to last and where it's going to get us to.
No, for sure. And some of the other sessions have talked about that, the things that the barriers are gone for a lot of people. There's a lot of people who maybe would have loved to attend your event, but now that it's online also, or exclusively online, there's opportunity for them. So where we might lose numbers in some ways, we will gain probably in others. That's for sure. Okay, so again, this has been discussed a little bit, but I haven't really heard a solution just yet. So how are events monetized is different between the US and other markets. So what are some ways that organizers of virtual events can ensure profitability? Jan, is this something that you have begun to tackle as you have really made this big shift with your events?
Yeah, we're learning. So
Okay.
actually, when this pandemic began, when it was officially called as a global pandemic by the World Health Organization, I was in Durban, and we were about to organize the first edition of our event for the African continent. World Football Summit is so just so that everybody who's listening knows, we're a global event focused on the business of football. Our flagship event is celebrated in Madrid. The first edition took place in 2016. And this year we were going to do our 5th edition at the end of September. Since our first edition, we've grown quite a lot, and we've taken our event in different parts of the globe. So last year we did our first Asian edition, and this year we were doing, for 2020, we had planned 4 events. We had our African edition, which was going to take place in Durban, South Africa. We were going to do an event in Istanbul the day before the UEFA Champions League final. We were doing the 2nd edition of our Asian event. And then at the end of September, we were supposed to do our 4th edition of World Football Summit in Madrid. We were 5 days away of organizing World Football Summit in Africa, and then it was declared a global pandemic. And so, we were seeing the finish line. And obviously, this situation has completely changed our schemes. So 2 months ago, we were only focused on organizing on-site events, physical events. And now, actually only last week, 7 days ago, was the first time we launched our first online summit, which will now take place from the 6th to the 9th of July. So we are really learning, and we don't know exactly how we're going to organize it or how it's going to take place. What I'm sure of is that the learning curve that we're gonna experience organizing our first online summit is going to be huge. And probably, the question you're asking me now, I'm going to try and answer it now, but in 6 months' time, I might have a completely different answer. But I think it's very similar, because at the end of the day, what our users, what the community that we have, what the people who inscribe themselves in an event, what they're looking for is very similar, whether it's an on-site event or whether it's an online event. So, they're seeking for excellent content, and they're seeking for good business relationships. So we're going to finance it in the same ways as we finance our physical events. So it's basically through sponsorships, through selling booths or exhibition spaces to companies that want to showcase their products, and through ticketing. So we're offering these people a platform. So people are going to pay to access that platform. So obviously, I think the revenue model for online events is going to be very similar to our physical events. But obviously, I think that maybe the prices that we're going to be charging for these products are going to be different. They're going to be the price range is going to be lower, but so are our costs as event organizers are going to be lower. So I think it's going to be compensated.
So I just wanted to chime in, and I agree with Jan completely. If you think about it, it really shouldn't be that different to monetize an online event. You're going to generate revenue through, just what Jan was saying, the sponsorships and sales and that sort of thing. And I think there's all sorts of opportunities for sponsorships. You can do preferred placements for logos and banners, and you can do sponsored virtual backdrops and those sort of things. And we've been working with our clients recently to look at some more creative ideas for sponsorship. So, some of the things we're doing are like little gift boxes or swag bags that are getting sent to the attendees in advance of the event, little care packages. With some of our clients, we're doing coupons for Uber Eats or Postmates that get sent the day of and expire that day, so we can have a meal together. We have one client that's doing a virtual wine tasting, so sending wine out. And these are all sponsored opportunities, and then kind of having an event together. They don't, clearly work well for tens of thousands of people, but, in the same way, a lot of the sponsorships at a physical event really target a segment or a breakout event. These are all opportunities, incentive raffles, sponsored concerts, live games and competitions, branded breaks like health and wellness breaks. So there's really like a whole new opportunity of items that can be sold as sponsorships now. So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. And I attended an online, it was supposed to be one day in person, and I ended up making an entire month. And one of the things that they did was they had 15-minute, sort of yoga-ish stretching things that they were sponsored by the person who was doing it. But I think there's huge upside to that. I love it. Okay, so one thing I think we can all agree on is that events have the opportunity to build community. Hopefully we already have a community, and then these events bring our community together. And we know, events should already include marketing's involvement upfront, during the event, after. So is going virtual or hybrid an opportunity for us to build community that keeps conversations, I'm kind of leading the witness, that keeps conversations going longer, extending the life of our events? And what are some ideas for how we can do this effectively? Jan, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think building a community has always been a priority for any event. But it's true that, if we are realistic with ourselves, most of our clients, most of our users came to our event or showed attention to our event maybe a couple of months before the event. And then when we closed shop, when the event was over, they kind of forgot about us until the following year. I think what online events instead are able to do is change that perspective and really produce content and engage that community for a lot longer, and hopefully for 365 days a year. So actually, what we are programming for our event is for it to basically organize. We're going to organize one event in July, which is going to be focused on the football industry, on the global football industry in general. But we're hoping that the following month we will focus on a particular sector, and then the following month on another one. So I think the fact that it's also going to be cheaper to organize online events, and that we are going to be able, and that we break those barriers, of going to an event and the whole logistics, will allow us to engage that community for a lot longer, for a lot longer periods of time, and for it to be a real community that is networking and engaging amongst themselves in a more constant way.
So this goes to my feeling that your hashtag should not be tied to the year. Personally, this is my personal, I'm going to die on this hill. You should have a unique hashtag that will just continue on for as long as you continue to have the event. That's just an aside. One of my things. Kimberly, what do you think?
Well, I'll kind of follow that theme with sort of a random aside. I think event organizers for so long have always looked for inspiration from another event. What's CES doing? What's SEMA doing? What, are these global events doing? But I think now is a time where we should really shift our thinking and look for inspiration from other brands that are doing 365 engagement really well. And one example, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Peloton or are users, but I think that's a great brand that really knows how to engage its community and keep them excited. I mean, I'm a grown woman that's like getting excited about earning my Lizzo ride badge and, doing my 100th ride or meeting certain criteria. I go on the Facebook page and I look at what the community is talking about, the before and after pictures of the other users. Like, they've created this emotional connection with me that keeps me engaged with their brand on a daily basis. I think Masterclass is another really good example. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but it's an online portal where you can learn, creative writing from Stephen King or how to play tennis from Serena Williams. It's a series of classes that you take and you do homework in between them. And it's really like driven by your passion for learning. And I think that as event organizers, this is a great little pause right now to start thinking about how lessons from other brands that we engage with, that we're familiar with, could be applied to our marketing strategy.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
And I think, no, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Megan, no, I was going to add that it's very important. We were talking before, and you said before, that we're with the online events, and I don't know personally because we still haven't launched our online events, but obviously that the number of registrations are huge, and obviously for us as well. I mean, we're hoping that this online event will be our biggest event ever because we don't have those barriers, but then it's going to be extremely challenging for event organizers really to engage that audience. No, so we don't really want them only to register, but we want them to be active in the platform, and to be active not only when we organize the event, but also when we keep the platform open later on. So it's really a challenge for event organizers to one, make that platform really interesting for the users to actually want to stay in it. And then another big challenge we're going to have is how to monetize, that platform, and whether those users who many times register for free are going to be willing to pay for certain products or not.
Right. Yeah. So and anyone who's listened to the podcast has heard me say this. I wrote my master's thesis on the value of face-to-face versus online communication within the context of trade shows. So this is something that I did some research on, and while it's been 6 years, I think that it still holds up. And the solution, the answer, is not one or the other. It is a blend, and that opportunity to engage before, during, and to keep that conversation going after is important. And I think event organizers up till now have had a tendency to move on to the next. Like, okay, our event's done. I've got 5 more events that I have to plan, so I'm moving on to that. So if you create this environment where your attendees, your participants can become a community, I think it's super valuable. I'm seeing that a lot in marketing and in pop-up groups for events. And so whether in pop-up groups in Facebook, whether you want to keep it going for only a year or make them new every year, or whether you want to actually make it a group for your event, those are things to kind of to think about. But apps that have this ability to to get to know other people in this online environment and keep that conversation going, I think are super valuable.
Yeah.
All right. So What are there any marketing methods that we can use to help the online experience be as valuable as the live experience? Kimberly, what do you think?
Well, so I know I sound like a broken record a little bit, but I always say start with strategy. So just, ensure that your organization is sort of aligned around the overall objectives of your virtual event. So write these things down in priority order. What do you want to accomplish? Is it audience engagement? Is it revenue generation? Is it lead gen? Is it brand building? Is it getting exposure for industry suppliers, establishment of thought leadership? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? I think too often organizers jump right into choosing a technology platform or, the logistics of it. But if you start with strategy and you make that list, you can refer back to it as you start facing those decisions about, not just marketing, but budget and content and the delivery vehicle and technology and sponsorships. Like, the strategy really should guide everything. And, the other thing I would say in terms of, a marketing method that can kind of help the online experience is targeting, making sure that, you're shifting from that mass marketing approach to one that's delivering very specific value propositions to those key segments of your audience. And then the other one I'll say is just make sure that you don't wait until the day of your event to share valuable information with your audience. So start teasing out compelling content in advance through guest blogs or speaker videos or, social media posts. Give your audience a taste of what's to come and ensure that you're not just doing it as an event organizer, but that you're using your partners in promotion, your speakers and your influencers to do the same.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think what's also very important in marketing these online events is to educate very well and in advance, our users, because I think the success of an online event depends a lot also on the expectations that people have. So for many users, I think they're going to be attending an online event for the first time. So if they think that the online experience is going to be exactly the same as a physical event, they're going to be extremely disappointed, and because it's not. But that doesn't mean it's worse. It can actually be a lot better because right now the technology that platforms such as the ones we're using right now with Swapcard are amazing. But you have to study it and you have to learn how to use it. And when you access it, you have to go with an open mind. And then the opportunities are endless. And it's just like, going to a physical event, those who prepare those events beforehand and study, the people they have to meet, the opportunities that exist. Those are the people that make the most out of an event, and with an online event, it's going to be exactly the same. Most people, go to events mainly for networking and to meet people, and you have to learn how to use that platform. And we as event organizers have to be able to explain that journey to the users.
Definitely. Shana has a great question. She asked, what are key elements that will set us apart from a glorified website? Kimberly, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it does come back to engagement. I think that a lot of us are kind of tired of being, just lectured to in the one-way dialogue and not having the opportunity to ask questions and to participate and to share ideas. I've been seeing a lot of events lately doing, where they might have a big speaker, but then have breakout sessions where people can go into smaller groups on, Zoom or other platforms and discuss what was just learned. So I think building in opportunities for meaningful engagement is one key way of separating, an online event from a glorified website.
Yeah. What do you think, Jan?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And everybody also, goes to an event for a different reason. So that's why, those breakout sessions that you were talking about are so important, because there are people who go to events because they want to listen to the panels, to the speakers and the conferences that are organized, and there are other people, you know, who don't even enter the conference room. They're only there for the networking, or because they've organized a meeting, with a particular group of people, So yeah, the glorified website is it's gonna be very similar, People are gonna be disappointed if they see a fantastic website and they're selling something fantastic, and then the reality is different, And with an online summit, even though you have a fantastic website, if the experience they get and the experience you give to those users that is negative or is not what they expected, well, they certainly won't come back.
100%. Yeah. Branding is also part of all of this. So my next question actually ties in with a question that Annika asked. So there's been some chatter just this week I've seen about altering the size of some events, so breaking them down into smaller hybrid events. Annika asked, should events be shorter and more bite-sized as attention span is shorter, and also employees are home, the kids' partners, that they can't dedicate a day to attending an event? And I think this one is, I think, a pretty good example, albeit a very tough time change for me personally, with it being not an entire day, but a shorter day with breaks, and of course being able to get the sessions on replay just about instantly. So as we come on the other side of this lockdown, how do you think, as we talk about live events, about the size, like is square feet and number of exhibitors, is that going to matter? Like, what do you think will be new ways of measuring the success? Because, right, that's what event organizers measured. And how many people did we, currently, right? How many people do we get in the hall, and based on traffic and all of that. And we could do a whole other session on follow-up and the data that event organizers can do a better job of, right? And determining success, what was success for their exhibitors. So what do you guys think about how we're going to measure the success of an event post-pandemic? Jan, you want to start?
Well, it depends what you mean by post-pandemic.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Okay, so let's say as we through phases evolve.
No, because I was saying that, Megan, because, for example, if it's after lockdown, if I have a lot of doubts whether an event organizer like myself, who has to finance has to finance everything, has to finance and build that event from scratch, will be able to organize an event if we are obliged to only have a very reduced capacity of speakers, of attendees attending our event. Because I think at the end, an event is we're in the entertainment business, and people are gonna go to an event when they feel fully comfortable going to an event. If they're going to be scared, then people are not going to go. And if people are not going to want to go to a physical event, then for an event organizer like ourselves, it's going to be next to impossible to actually finance it, because we're not going to get sponsors that are going to finance it, and people that are going to want to buy a ticket to go there. So for me, really, we're only going to be able to finance events like we used to when we find a vaccine, or there's a strong treatment that can fight the virus. So yeah, that's kind of that's one of the big doubts I have of when we're going to pass to that phase.
I think the question that the user submitted is really smart too, and it shows that, she's thinking in the right direction in terms of, as we start to shift to virtual, it's not just a matter of trying to replicate everything we were doing live online now. It's, thinking smartly about having empathy, thinking about the lives of the audience. Are they really going to commit to an entire 3 days of doing nothing but watching your webinar as they did when they traveled to a physical event. So I do think most organizers of online events are now shifting to doing more bite-sized chunks spread out over a longer period of time to meet the needs of the audience. I would still go back to, understanding your audience and how they consume information and doing what seems to be right for you. But in terms of like shifting our thinking too, as we start to think post-pandemic, I think we're going to be up against two competing sentiments. I think there is going to be a pent-up demand for live events and community and commerce and all those things that we're missing right now. And I think there's also going to be a lingering fear about mass gatherings and germs and COVID-19. And I think our jobs as marketers is to sort of fuel that desire to connect again while minimizing that fear. So if we go back to the way we were marketing before, where we were sort of beating our chest about how big we were and how many square feet or square meters or whatever our show covered and how many other attendees were there and all the countries they came from, I think we're going to exacerbate that fear. And the reality is those are the metrics by which organizers measure their own success, but they really don't speak to the experience an attendee or a visitor is going to have at your show. So we've been advising our clients against it for years, and I think now is the time, really to heed the advice and to shift into answering that what's in it for me question, the WIFM. We have to tighten up our value propositions. They need to be strong, and as much as possible, they need to be targeted to sub-segments of our audience to really get through and to show them the value of spending time at our online events.
Yeah. For me, what is key also is, until we don't have a clear timeline of when we can organize events like we used to, right now we have to embrace technology and the technology that is available for event organizers. And this pandemic, I think, is going to oblige all of us to embrace it because we don't have any other option. And that creates enormous opportunities. And it will. And once we are able to organize events like we used to, the learnings that we're going to have from organizing all of these online summits and making them hybrid are going to be huge. Just to put a football perspective into this, when TV broadcasters started, to show football matches on TV, many people, thought that maybe that could have been, the end of people attending stadiums, no, because they could watch the same match from the comfort of their houses, no. The product is exactly the same. You're watching exactly the same, but the experience is completely different. So until we are able to organize events like we used to, we have to make the most out of organizing, out of using the technology to organize our online events. And that hopefully, will make our potential revenues once we get back to normal, multiply by God knows how much.
Right. Yeah, I had a former client who I used to do audiovisual production, and they had 10,000 people register for an event that they normally have about 3,000 people go to live. Now, I think they ended up having about half that show up, but still, and a lot of those people aren't members. It's a member organization. So now the marketing opportunity to pull those people in, to make them part of that community and become members is huge. So I think all of that is great. All right. There have been some great questions. We have about 6 minutes left. Kirk has been asking some awesome questions, and we're not going to be able to get to all of them. But I think that between the three of us, we can all go back to the questions and answer those that we haven't discussed. He said, you keep talking about the need to create engagement, that magic word. A couple more quick examples of cool things you've seen to help support that statement. So examples of getting people engaged. And he asked another question that's, I think, sort of related. That's, where is it? Well, keeping people from going in with a webinar mindset, of doing what can we do as marketers to help express. Of course, the event you have to deliver, so that's a separate issue. But and then marketing the event as a as one that's more than a webinar. Kimberly, what do you think?
Sure. So I one of the things that I like to do as part of the actual promotions is reach out to the attendees and the participants and ask them what they want to hear about, what they want to learn about, give them a hand in sort of shaping the content. I do like, just simple question and answers. I like doing lots of live polling and showing the results, and then, maybe opening up a discussion for people that answered it a certain way, why, for people that answered it another way, why, using that engagement to be a little bit more in the moment with a discussion and talk about the things that, people are bringing up on the call right then and there. I do really like the breakouts, like having an opportunity for smaller discussions. I think there's creative things you can do too. One of the sessions I taught, I encourage people, have you seen those little artists that do like the doodles while people are talking? I'd ask people to do that and take a picture and send me what they were doodling so we could create, something fun from it. So just trying to think of interesting ways to keep an audience listening, participating so they're not tuning out.
Yeah, there's a handful of people who do that as a profession. So that's something you could add in. You could have someone who is an illustrator be a sponsor of your event and draw each session and then have it be live on screen so everyone can see how it evolves and how they've been contributing to the conversation. And then, of course, get everyone to Instagram it, right?
Right.
And sharing, encouraging everyone to share it on social media. Jan, what do you think? Any ideas?
Yeah, I think, listening to your community or being available to your community, that's extremely important. You can't just leave them to do all the work of, for example, contacting potential clients or looking, or seeing what are the best panels that would work for them. The community that we as event organizers have built, we know that community better than anyone else. So I think it's very important that we allow those users to have access to us as event organizers and to be able for us to lead them to what are, the potential clients or potential leads, that can work in their favor, and make ourselves available to them in order to direct them and show them how best to use the platform and how best to engage with the community that we've built within the online summit.
Yeah. So Callie asked, what are some suggestions on how to make smaller roundtable sessions more exciting in a virtual environment, from marketing it ahead of time to ensuring people actually show up, and activities that you can do? So I'm going to, and we have just a couple of minutes left. So I'm going to give an example of a event that I attended recently that I mentioned was one day, and then they made it a month-long event. They had pub crawls. And so we got on Zoom, and at first it was everyone on the screen. But then they did breakouts. They randomly selected two people to pair together, and we did like the speed networking thing. We got 5 minutes to get to know someone else, and then you could stay on for as long as you could stay on, and then everyone came back together again. So the breakout capability is super fun, and it made me feel like more a part of the community. Actually, I joined the community. I became a member after the event. That's how impactful it was for me. Like, I could tell that this community of people were, going to help make a difference in my business. And I just, I like them. So when you give them these chances to get to know each other in a different way, I think that it helps your long term of being able to keep people engaged and keep them coming back. And again, when you do meet in person, they're going to want to meet. There, and Kiki talked about this in the last one. You get to know people and you're like, you want to have a drink, and she hearkened it back to the old days of social media in the beginning, when you actually, you would talk with people on Twitter, and then we would attend an event and have a tweet up. So anyway, all that to say, there's huge opportunity. I have 30 seconds left, so I'm going to thank my guests, Jan and Kimberly. This has been a lovely discussion, and again, we'll go back and answer the questions that we missed, but obviously we need to get creative with our marketing, and everyone needs to sort of open up their minds to the potential of how we can grow our events in this combo world. Make sure to subscribe to the Inside Events podcast, and we will catch you there. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.